having a great day, and trust you had, for those of us that is in the evening here in Nigeria, trust we've had a wonderful day so far, and others people, trust your days are going well. Yeah, thank you so much once again for joining in the April webinar, and I would let Mr. Temidayo to introduce our guest for today. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good day from wherever we are joining. Thank you, Obakemi, for that privilege. Okay, Mr. Idris Soliu is a doctoral student at the College of Built Environment, University of Washington, United States. His research interest is on emerging technologies for implementing circular economy in the built environment. So I hereby present our guest speaker for today, Mr. Idris Soliu. It's a round of applause, a digital round of applause. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for
joining.
Me. Can I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Okay, yo. Okay. Okay, thank you for having me once again. It's a great opportunity to be your speaker in today's webinar. I've been looking forward to do something like this so that I can also air out my view in terms of fighting climate change from the built environment perspective. Yeah, so I will be presenting on the role of built environment in achieving climate neutrality. And my presentation is divided into 3 to 4 sections. Yeah, for the first section, talk about the climate neutrality. What is climate neutrality? Then the causes, what are the impacts? Because before we can fight something, we have to know the causes, and we have to also know the impacts. Does it really worth fighting? Do we even need to spend a lot of money and energy or resources in fighting it? So I'll talk about that as well. Then I'll also now talk about the strategy. What are the strategies in achieving neutrality? And of course, I'll give a brief overview of the built environment for those people that are not from the built environment sector, and see how I can integrate circular economy into built environment to achieve climate neutrality in the long run. So that is just the summary of my agenda today. So without further ado, so let's just begin. Yeah, the first, when we want to talk about something or a concept, the first thing to ask about is what is that concepts, which make me ask this question: what is climate neutrality? Because I'm sure maybe some of us are aware of this issue. Some people may not be aware. Then by my definition, climate neutrality, which is also known as carbon neutrality or net zero emission, is a way of achieving a balanced distribution, a logical distribution between the amount of greenhouse gas emitted into the atmosphere and the amount removed from it. So that is just the basic definition of this concept. So then what is this greenhouse gas? How does it occur? What are the causes? And what is the goal of this climate neutrality? Basically, what climate neutrality tends to solve is to combat climate change. So that is the connection between climate neutrality and climate change. Climate change is a serious environmental impact that is affecting the environment. And not even the environment, it also affects the people, the properties, and even the livelihood of the world population. And it is something that we have to sit together and come up with a lasting solution to achieve a climate neutral. Yeah, so the causes, so what are the causes of these climate change? So I was able to uncover 4 different causes of it. Of course, there are many, but because of the time, I try to limit my discussion within the allowable time limit. The first causes of this is burning fossil fuel. Of course, this is not new to majority of us. Fossil fuel is one of the greatest contributor of climate change, and it happens every day. We do it every day. Fossil fuels such as from the combustion of oil, natural gas for transportation, for the generation of energy or electricity, emits series of greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. And this really cause a lot of problem into the atmosphere. So another one is these agricultural and livestock farming. Yeah, so you might be wondering, how does agriculture contribute to climate change? It does, actually. And the impact from this sector is also alarming, because the basic necessity of human is food, shelter, and clothing, of course. And all these 3 are as a result from agricultural products, because food we have to eat every day, and we need a roof in our head, and of course we have to put on some cloth. So for us to get food, we have to kind of cut down the tree, clear the surface, and plant, do a kind of massive plantation, such as maybe rice farming, beans, or cotton farming. So these really have impact, because these thick forests serve a kind of a natural carbon sinking. And by the time we cut down these trees and try to plant, of course, there won't be any tree there any longer, and any impact from other sector, instead of being sink into this environment, it will just go straight to the atmosphere. And again, this impact also, the agricultural sector also contributes in terms of the chemical use for the production of these agricultural products. For instance, the application of these synthetic fertilizer emit a huge methane, which is a potent chemical for greenhouse gas. And we can't do without that, because we have to apply chemical to this plant for us to get a good product from them. And this is causing serious danger day by day, year by year. So you can imagine the kind of agricultural land that's all over the world. So you can just think about that. You see that it's really a very big issue. And the third one is an industrial process. This is also something we can't survive without. Everything we do today is a product of one industrial process or the other. Apart from the built environment, we talk about clothing, plastic, electricity, even mobile phone, laptop, everything passes through one industrial process or the other. So, and this has been a very big issue that needs serious attention. And in terms of built environment, cement industry alone contributes more than 8% of the total global emission. So you can imagine the impacts of the built environment. So talk less about the roofing sheets, the tiles, the painting, the facade, glass, and all those other building components. All these components passes through one industrial process or the other, and they have been in play in practice for so many years without thinking of the harmful impact of the environment. So that's another source of causes of climate change that we have to look out for. And again, the waste management system, because we are operating a kind of a poor waste management system. And that is as a result of our the consumerism practice that a pattern we are practicing, because we practice take, make, use, and dispose without even considering the harmful impact of these waste in the landfill. And this landfill contribute about 1/3 of the total global waste, so which also contribute hugely into the climate change, and even affect life and properties in the case of excessive weather. We get to that part. So those are the causes of the climate change. Then what is now the impact, before we can talk about the strategy for mitigating the climate change to achieve climate neutrality? Of course, some countries have already set targets to achieve this climate neutrality. And for instance, majority of the European countries said about by year 2050 to achieve a balance and logical distribution between the amount of greenhouse gas emitted and those absorbed into the atmosphere. So I think in Africa is about 2063, and some countries are even ahead of the game. I'm currently in Belgium for the World Circular Economic Forum 2024. And this topic is one of the major topical issues discussed during almost all the forum discussed the issue of these achieving climate neutrality. And I think some countries like Belgium, Netherlands, and Finland are already revising their climate neutrality achievement maybe by 2044. Yeah, maybe cutting down by about 6 years, because they are really working towards achieving this issue. But I don't know what we are actually doing about that in the global south. So, but I think we are still working towards 2063, which is also somehow achievable. 2023 is still a very long time to achieve something meaningful. So this impact of climate change result in these for instance, result in rising temperature. This is not a new issue, especially most of us from the global south. These days, I heard people complain about too much heat in Nigeria, like, oh, the heat is too much, this is that. Is because of the climate change, because the temperature is increasing day by day. So that is one of the harmful effects of this climate change, the impact. And this rising temperature could cause heat-related issue, such as for people with pre-existing health issue, it can cause a kind of heat-related illness to them, and somehow even may even result into death in some extreme cases. And again, these impacts are somehow interwoven. They're kind of a kind of chain link among among all of them. The causes of one result to another, which also link to another and another. So we get there by that. So this rising temperature is also causing the melting of the glacier, and the polar bear in the polar bear. And this melting of ice is resulting in rising sea level, thereby making some community, posing them to risk to some community into risk, especially community along the coastal line, because we have people that live along the coastal line, and the rising level of this water is posing a danger because of our activities, our daily activities on the environment. And this rising sea level can also cause a big issue, such as flooding in the case of extreme weather events, such as flooding, wildfire, flooding, or storm, hurricane, or cyclone. A typical example of this is what happened in Dubai just recently. That is just a typical of Also, some people believe, oh, it's because of cloud seeding and so on and so forth. I don't believe in that. I think it's as a result of climate change, and we have to fight that. So you can imagine the loss of the property that would happen in Dubai. The whole economic and social activities is grounded. Nobody was able to go anywhere. Everywhere was flooded with water. So you can that's just a typical example in a kind of extreme weather event that could occur. And of course, we've also experienced this before in Nigeria, along the coastal line, maybe around the Kogi, Lokoja area that normally, Benue area that normally occur maybe at some interval. So you can imagine the kind of impact that will have on the life of the people. And once that happens, of course, it will come alone. There'll be a kind of serious health issues because the whole sewage system, the soakaway, everything will be flooded, and which will come with the kind of different kind of diseases and may even result in death. So that is a very, very serious issue that we have to kind of combat in order to achieve climate neutrality. And once that happens, of course, the social and economic activities will be grounded. Nothing is going to be happening. What will be after is how to evacuate people from that region, such as rescue mission. How can we save people? We don't even bother about the properties. We just want to save life first. So we can imagine the third picture I had there. So people are living in this environment and the whole environment, the whole community is flooded. So what economic activity do you want to perform there? Nothing. What we'll be considering is how can we just rescue people from this? And this kind of issue come with serious kind of health issue and the like. And once that happens, because majority of this coastal community mostly do a kind of farming or fishing as their major source of income. And once that happens, they won't be able to do anything. They won't be able to go to farm. They won't be able to fish. They will be forced to leave that community, which also results to the last part, which is migration and displacement. People might have to be migrated from that community and maybe migrating to another community or urban center. So by going to urban center, they are still going to put pressure on the existing insufficient infrastructure. So that we are still talking about. In fact, the result of the report of World Bank projected that about 3 billion people is projected to be migrated to urban center by 2050. And they will require more than 3 million homes and additional infrastructure. So you can picture that to see and compare with the impact. So meaning that we still have to kind of go back, do the same practice again by building additional infrastructure, potable water supply, and so on and so forth. So it's like we are still repeating the same process. Then how can we now solve this issue? By solving this issue, of course, we should be able to achieve climate neutrality. There is something that is achievable, of course, I'll say yes. It's something that we can do. So how can we achieve it? So here I group my discussion into 3 different groups. I have group 1, group 2, and group 3. So group 1 involves reducing emission. That is, we have to cut down the amount of greenhouse gas we are emitting to the atmosphere for us to achieve climate neutrality. Of course, we can achieve that. This is something that is achievable within a short period of time. It is easier said than done because I don't think it's something that is even sustainable, because we say, okay, let us cut down emission by maybe looking for alternative source of energy instead of using the conventional energy such as oil, petrol and the like. They say, okay, they come up with an electric car. So what happens to the battery of electric cars at the end of the life? What happens to it? Can anybody chip in? I ask a question.
Sorry, can you repeat your question? Thank you.
My question is one of the way of strategy of achieving climate neutrality is to reduce emission. So what does this mean? Reducing emission is to source for alternative source of energy instead of using oil, natural gas that emits greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. We can go for a renewable source of energy, such as using battery cars, solar panel. So I now ask, what happens to the solar panel and the battery of the car at the end of the life? So what happened to them?
For the battery,
Yeah, go ahead.
for the battery, we can also go for recycling. We can recycle the battery after the battery life has expired, so to create another one.
Okay. What about the solar panel?
Same thing too, because everything, we just have to separate it, recycling, sort, separate, then recycle.
Okay. Yeah. But do you think we have technology to do that right now?
Yeah, presently there are some technologies that are coming out which we can use, but presently it has not circulated because for the industry, when they talk about sustainability, the industry is not, people have not accepted sustainability. It's still growing. It's a new industry which is still growing. So we don't have much technology yet.
Yeah. So that is one of the major issues. Of course, it might be recyclable because it's one of the major discussion at the Circular Economic Forum here in Belgium, like what becomes the battery of electric car. Some experts argue that for now, there's no means of dealing with that. They still end up in the landfill because we don't have that technology to recycle now. So you cannot imagine the amount of solar panel we are producing now, the amount of battery all over the world ending up in the landfill. It's like solving one problem to create another. It's like we are creating problem for the next generation because these technology are not something that is easy to come by. Of course, there will be a lot of work that will have to put in place for us to get to that level, and we keep producing electric car, keep producing the and solar panel without even considering the end of life. How do we deal with it at the end of life? So that is what knock off that aspect. And again, our current practice have to be totally overhauled for us to reduce emission, because all the machineries, the equipment we are using in the processing plant are not designed for this purpose. So that means it's still going to pose a kind of financial burden in the industry, because the industry have to change their machinery, their equipment, and the like for them to be able to reduce emission, which will subsequently end up in the landfill again. So that is the problem about that. So the second one is afforestation and reforestation. Of course, this is a good one because it requires planting of trees, and maybe after due to the agricultural activities. So you can think of, okay, planting of tree to serve a kind of natural carbon sink to absorb carbon. Then why if we have to spend money to do that, why do we have to cut down the tree in the first place? So that is my problem with that. Then we have to kind of promote sustainable production and consumption. Yeah, this is my biggest issue, and I think everybody is guilty of this, including myself. Everybody, because our consumption pattern is not sustainable. We consume what we don't need. and it has been like that from the time immemorial. Like, does it even make sense to say, okay, we produce car every year, we produce new phones every year? Is it logical to build every year? Why can't we just construct a building that will last for 500 years instead of building in piecemeal, building every year, infrastructure every year? Do something that will just last for 500 years, or make a phone that will just solve problem, that will perform all these function for like, fine, although things are emerging, technologies are emerging, but I don't think consumption pattern is sustainable. In fact, there is a report of United Nations stating that the consumption of natural resources in the last decade has surpassed of the consumption that is that the material that was consumed in the last century. You can compare, just we consume something, what we consume in the last 10 years surpasses what we've been consuming for like 100 years. And we are guilty because we say, okay, there's new phone, let me just change my phone. Let me buy clothes, I buy shoes that I don't even need. So why do we have to do that? So we have to for us to achieve this climate neutrality, we have to kind of imbibe that idea. That is it easy to just convince someone to not to buy new phone, not to buy new car, and the company that are producing this product are not even helping the matter because they are there to make money. They are there to make more money. So they produce things that you will like, it will entice one way or the other. That is just like, oh, okay, there's new iPhone 16, so I have to change my phone. Your old phone is functioning very well, you don't need it. Your laptop is doing fine, you have enough clothes already, you have enough shoe already. You don't have to then keep buying, all in the name of, oh, I want to look good, I want to wear it, I want to ride the latest car, which is harming the environment. And of course, in terms of built environment, what we can also do to achieve it is to stop building. Yeah, we can achieve climate neutrality by stopping building. But is this possible? Can anyone chip in? Is it possible to stop building and just maintain the existing one?
Yes, I believe it is possible, although the rate at which the increase in population makes it seems impossible. So I think there are fundamental things to be corrected before we can say we want to really put a stop to building houses. Because once the population increases or once there are other factors involved, like displacement, flooding and all, we want to build. So I think we need to correct some things before we can stop building houses. And also, I believe that houses and house things should be made the properties should last. They should make it so in such a way that build in such a way that it will last longer and home. So I think that's my point.
Okay, Ayomide, you raise your hand. You have.
Yeah, to say that we want to stop building is a little bit hard, but I think using sustainable material, yeah, sure, because to say we want to stop building, just like what said, population is increasing and they need a place to even in the United States. Building is people are building. So because the population, homelessness is a big picture. Just because there are not enough houses that people are living in. So stop building is a little bit hard and tricky. So, but probably using sustainable material, or mobile homes.
Okay, mobile home, so that when you are going to Lagos, you take your home. When you are going to Kwara State, you move it again. Well, yeah, you both of you have a valid point, but I don't think we can stopping building we resort to climate neutrality. In fact, it's going to create much more problem. Currently, as Nigeria has about more than 28 million housing deficits with the current population, more than 28 million housing deficits. So even the existing house has not even been able to cater for the current population. So talk less of, and the population is growing year by year. In fact, the world population is projected to be around more than 10 billion by 2058. So you can imagine that is about more than like 25% increase of the current population. So stopping building is not going to solve problem. It's going to create a lot of problem. I think you can, for those of us in America, you can see we have these homeless issue, and like, I don't know, the homeless is a very big issue until I got to the US. When I got to Seattle, I was like, what are these people doing here? They are homeless. They don't have a home. We don't see something like that back home. So stopping building is not going to solve the problem. It's going to create more problem, social unrest, and a lot of pressure on the existing infrastructure. Because if people cannot afford to stay in home, people will have to live somewhere, maybe staying under the bridge, under the flyover, or anywhere they can just put their head. We can't just work 24 hours. Of course, we have to sleep, definitely. So stopping building may not be a big a solution. Okay, homeless is a it's a very big issue in the United States. Yeah, it's a very, very big. In fact, they are even moving people from one state to another. Yeah, I had a conference in Honolulu last year, and on getting there, I discovered the number of homeless people are even much more than the people I used to see in Washington. I was like, what is happening? I asked a guy, and he said, oh, because governments of other states just put them in a plane, pay for their plane ticket, and come and dump them there. Because the weather is somehow favorable in Hawaii. You know, the weather is not so cold, it's hot weather. So to save them from dying, so you just put them on a plane, buy a plane ticket for them, and plane come and drop them there. So you can imagine that kind of things, like moving people from Lagos to Ilorin, or from Maiduguri to Abuja, on the name of, oh, let us solve these homelessness in the country. So stopping building will not solve the problem. It will even create much more issue. And I think, and I argue that the only way we can achieve this is adopting an emerging model, which is called circular economy, because circular economy can solve all these problems, the problem of reducing emission, afforestation, and promoting sustainable and production and sustainable pattern is going to solve them, and without even have to stop building. So by adopting this practice, of course, we are going to achieve, although it's a long way to go, we have a long way to go in that. It's part of the discussion yesterday, but it is promising. So that is the strategy to achieve this climate neutrality. Then how do we now step it down to the built environment? Yeah, before we step it down, it is good to kind of give an overview of the built environment for the purpose of those that are not in the industry. Because once people see construction, they think, oh, everybody works, construction is the same. No, construction is not the same. There are four subgroups in the built environment sector. We have the residential sector, we have the commercial sector, we have civil engineering sector, and we have industrial engineering sector. And all these sectors contribute to climate change, all of them. The residential sector are in charge of producing mass housing. They are only concerned with the production of houses. So they don't do anything rather than production of houses. And they are the largest group they are the largest, they have the largest population in the group because residential development does not require much expertise. Once you have a degree in maybe any built environment course, you can set up a construction company because the risk there, the technical risk, financial risk, and other risks in the residential building are very, very minimal. It's something that somebody can do. Even someone with just a few year training can even be a residential contractor. So, and this sector use a lot of cement, a lot of glass, facade materials, and the like. And they are the largest, they have the largest population in the group. The other sector is the commercial sector. These sectors are those involved in building hotels, office development, and large residential development. So this sector is much more fragmented compared to the residential sector because of the complexity of the project. You can see from the picture, this is just like the residential is just about 3 to 4 floors, and this is like high-rise building. So the heating and ventilation in this one alone contributes hugely into the atmosphere because you have to power this building. Everything you have to, the air conditioner have to keep running, the lighting have to keep running unlike the residential building. Then we have the civil engineering sector. So this is also less fragmented. We have few people in this cadre because it is more technical and require huge financial resources. So it's not something anybody can just dabble in, but consume. This is the industry sector that consume more of the cement because civil engineering sector involve producing a rigid element, a rigid structure such as road, bridges, dams, and so on and so forth. And for us to put that kind of structure in place, it will require a kind of mostly on concrete, and concrete cannot come into being without cement. So this sector alone contributes, let's say, about 5% of the total emission into the atmosphere because of the volume of the cement that is being used in this sector. And the last sector of the pyramid is the industrial sector. This sector is that is the largest, is the most sophisticated sector in the built environment, and it is less fragmented. This is highly technical and require huge financial resources. This kind of project can last for like maybe 10 to 20 years to construct. So, and one thing about this last sector is it also has component of all these other 3 sectors in it, because for that sector to run, you have to have residents, you need to have a banking hall, office, then you need to have network of road in that sector for it to run. So do anybody have experience about this last sector? We can give a kind of example of that kind of project. Maybe you have come, well, I'm sure you have come across it, of course. Do anybody have opinion on that? Nobody? It's something we've all seen one way or the other. Okay. Okay.
But I was gonna say, yeah, talking of built environments, I'm pretty sure it's built environment.
So can you
Really
be a little bit audible?
Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello, can you speak louder? I can't really hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah. I said thank you for this clarity on built environment. I wasn't too sure what built environment is before now. Yeah. This really explains the basics of the concept of built environment.
Okay. So do you know any example of this industrial sector? or heavy engineering sector. It's called industrial or heavy engineering sector.
If I may speak, I believe to understand your question, you said example of industrial sector. I feel that Dangote refinery.
Yes, perfect. That is just the perfect example. Yeah, because in Dangote refinery, we have staff quarters, which is residential. We have office complex. We might even have hotel there, that is commercial. We have networks of roads to move from one place to another, and the main refinery section itself, the petrochemical section itself, that is a typical example. Another example is airports. In airports, we have runway, we have office, we have train. The train can be connected. So all these, that is that is a typical example of that sector, like petrochemical plant, refineries, all those kind of projects, and they fall within that category, and they require much more expertise, require huge amount of money, can last for like 10 years in completion, and is highly technical. So that is the sector, in case anybody wants to venture into having to engage with the built environment. So all this sector now contribute one way or the other to climate change. Yeah, one way or the other. Even the contribution of the industrial sector is the highest, because you have building, you have road, then it also emits green gas, because by the time the project is completed, it is constructed to produce a product, maybe to refine oil, crude oil. So that refining process will also emit. The construction emits, the running of the facility also emits. So you can imagine the kind of impact this sector alone has on the environment. And okay, and because this built environment have been operating in the linear model from the time immemorial, which require take, make, use, and waste. That is, we go to go and extract raw material, move it to the industry, to the factory, to produce maybe, for example, cement or paint or tiles. Then we put those facilities in use. At the end of the life, we demolish it. Then we go and dump it on the dump sites. So that is a kind of practice we are operating currently in the built environment. Okay, Ayomide, you raise your hand.
Yeah, someone has a question in the chat box.
Okay, since it's not necessarily part of the built environment. Okay, Eco Atlantic City, since I didn't get that question.
The question is, does agriculture fall within the built environment, since it is not necessarily part of the natural environment?
Oh, no, I didn't see that. Mobile housing, homeless. Oh, I didn't even see that, I only see since it's not necessarily part of the built. Okay, let me see. Okay, does agriculture no, agriculture does not fall into the built environment. It is a sector on its own. Yeah, but in agriculture, in a large scale farming, you can still have element of built environment, because when we're talking about large scale farming, because there have to be a kind of network of roads, there have to be a kind of housing for the staff. If you have to house your staff in the farm, if they don't have to commute to the farm every day, maybe they reside there. So of course, it will have it also has impact, but it's not really connected to the built environment. I think, does that answer your question? So this is the current practice. So we have been operating in the built environment for hundreds of years. And how does this affect climate change? How does it contribute to climate change? Let's say, for example, you have a heap of sand in your backyard, because the notion for relying heavily on natural resources was that, oh, natural resources are abundant and they cannot finish. It is not scarce. It is infinite. Whereas the latest study revealed that natural resources, we are even currently exceeding the carrying capacity of the planet Earth. So that is the current study. Like, we have gone beyond boundary, like planetary boundary. We have gone beyond planetary boundary. So a typical example of this is you have a heap of sand or a tip of sand at your backyard. And whenever you want to do minor maintenance, you go there and collect sand. Maybe you have like maybe 10 tons. I don't know whether maybe just a mini tipper of sand full of sand, then you dump it in your backyard. And whenever you want to do minor repair, maybe the cracks or something in your building, you go there and collect sand. You go there today, tomorrow, next tomorrow, every year. Will that sand be increasing or reducing? Of
It
course,
definitely reduces.
yes. That is just what happens to the natural resources. That is what happens to it. It keeps reducing. It's reducing. And this pattern does not even consider the generation unborn. Yeah, we didn't consider generation number because we keep building every year, infrastructure, massive infrastructure, facilities. And at the end of the day, and from inception to the end of life of this practice, emits gases to the atmosphere. From inception, you can see from the picture one, the heavy machinery that are working emit gases. The extraction of that material contributes to climate change. The processing of that natural resource of that material, maybe cement or tiles or roofing sheet, also emits CO2 into the atmosphere. The running of that property, which is picture 3, such as lighting, heating, and ventilation, also emits. At the end of the day, we are still going to demolish that building. So by the time we demolish, we go and dump it on the dump site. So by dumping on the dump site, any little extreme weather event, you see wildfire. And that wildfire contributes hugely to the climate change. So that is how we have been practicing from the time immemorial, which is not sustainable. And this practice alone, okay, this is just to give you like the concepts that we operate in the built environment. How does it affect the environment? We design. From the design, then we construct, we maintain the building for some period, dismantle, then we end of life. Usually every built environment project has to fulfill 3 purposes, such as environmental requirement, economic requirement, and structural requirement. Environmental requirement, economic requirement involve the getting value for the money spent on the project. Does that property serve the purpose? Does that road serve the purpose? You construct a road to last for certain years. Do you actually get value for that? Structural requirements involve structural stability of that structure. Can it withstand the self-load, superimposed load of snow and the like, and extreme weather? If it does, that means it's achieved that. Then what about environmental requirement? Can we say the built environment fulfill environmental requirements? The answer is no, because it contributes hugely to the environment. As a matter of fact, the industry contributes consume more than half of the global natural resources. The built environment alone, half of the global natural resources consume it. And it accounts for about 50% of total energy consumption, because you have to power this building, all these skyscraper, you have to power them. And this skyscraper, this energy this power require one form of energy or the other, which is sourced from either fossil fuel, mostly fossil fuel, yeah, which emit greenhouse gas to the atmosphere, and it requires about 1/3 of total water and generate about 1/3 of waste globally. So that is, you can imagine the impact of the built environment, and all these emit gases, like as I said from the beginning, like the extraction of raw material will emit gas, the processing, the running of the building, the water. We don't have to, in fact, here in the day I got here and I discovered that you get incentive for not using much water in my hotel. I was like, they wrote it like, they're like, okay, if you're able to reuse your toilet for like 3 days, you get incentive to save water. It is clearly written there. I was like, this is even surprising to me, because we consume a lot of water, and this water, all these resources are something that can finish. So for us to now achieve this balance of without having to stop building, without having to reduce emission or to plant, we have to embrace the emerging practice, which is called circular economy. And the model is envisioned to keep the material usage in circulation as long as possible, instead of take, make, waste, and dispose. So we now take, make, use, reuse, recycle, and recycle again with little dispose. That is a kind of residual waste. So by doing this, we kind of reduce pressure on the natural resource, because instead of going back again and extract, we can reuse those materials, we can recycle them. So we reduce pressure on the natural resources, we reduce water consumption, we reduce energy consumption, and of course, waste in the landfill site will also be reduced drastically. And by that, we are going to reduce CO2 emission, which is a major contributor of climate change. So circular economy is majorly envisioned to do that. And basically, it is designed to design product with the end of life in mind. So before you even design, you think of, okay, what I'm designing, what is going to happen to it at the end of its initial life? Can it be relooked, and can it achieve a kind of secondary look? Can it be reused? Can it be returned to the production line to achieve to reuse again, instead of just dumping it on the dump site? So that is what it tends to do. And for us to kind of embed this practice in the built environment, there will really require a kind of systemic change in our current practice. The first picture is which is the current practice. That is the practice we are operating currently in the built environment. We extract raw material that is from cradle to grave. So we extract, we manufacture, transport to the site, we construct on site, occupation, that means that we put into use, we demolish, and we dispose. So that is the picture, that is the current practice. So for us to now inject the circularity principle into the built environment, we have to change, there'll be a kind of overhauling of the practice. We have to change the way we operate, which now require having to change, instead of from designing, before we even design, we think of the kind of material we want to use. This material in conformity of circularity principle, so that you can't just design building, that okay, just design building and specify material. Before you specify material, what kind of material it is? Is it reusable? Is it repairable? Is it recyclable? So we have to consider that. So we use that in sourcing those material. So by after sourcing, then we construct. So from construction, we operate the building that is in use. So instead of minor maintenance, then we renew the building. That means we prolong the life of the building by injecting some principle, such as repairing, reusing, instead of maybe your circuits got burned, instead of just remove it and dump it. You can produce sockets that are reusable even after it has got burnt, that are recyclable, that can be used for another material. Then we disassemble, because currently we are operating kind of complete demolition in the built environment. Once the building achieves initial lifespan, you just bring the bulldozer and bulldoze the building. But for us to be able to inject circularity into the built environment, we have to consider disassembly so that we can just demolish in parts. Like, okay, let's demolish this part so that we can recover those material and return them back into the factory, or we can reuse them in another project, which can also be repurposed, either to serve the same purpose or to serve different purpose. And by serving different purpose or the same purpose, we can incorporate it again in the design of the new structure. So by that, the waste will be minimal, the pressure on the natural resources will be reduced, the emission of greenhouse gas will also drastically be eliminated, because it's like we are using the same component. So how can we now achieve that? We can achieve that by injecting some practice into the building life cycle, which is usually the building is divided into 3 stages. We have the design stage, we have the construction stage, and we have the end of life. So how can we now integrate circularity principle into this different stage? For instance, at the design stage, we have to consider like selecting material and product. Before we design, we have to consider what kind of material are we going to specify for this project, so that you can't just specify any material that are not reusable, that are not repairable. So that has to come. Then design for modularity. We have to consider a kind of modular construction for us to achieve that. Then design for adaptability and flexibility. Yeah, instead of just constructing different kind of building, we have office development, we have residential here, we have school here. Why not just construct a structure that are multi-purpose in nature, that we can use for lecture, we can use for office, we can convert it to like a classroom, we can convert it to large hall. So by that, we are going to reduce the natural resources that will be extracted and even maintenance of those buildings. Then design for standardization. So when we are designing, we have to standardize our design in such a way that any components that are being removed from one building can be used in another building. That means the building, maybe the height have to be the same, the window have to be the same, the door have to be the same, the wall have to be of the same type, because for us to achieve that, for instance, maybe you have a brick house in a building. Here is a brick house, and building B is a glass house. They are not compatible. They are not standardized. So we have to kind of think of how we can standardize our design so that building A and building B, building A to building Z are the same standard, so that if any part of the building has a defect, we can reuse any other part from any of the building. Then design for prefabrication. Yeah, prefabrication save a lot of eliminate a lot of waste and increase productivity. Prefabrication is a kind of producing a building element in a controlled environment. Instead of going to the sites and mixing concrete on site, you can just actually mix concrete in the factory and produce that element, then transfer them to sites and assemble. So by that, you are eliminating waste. By the time you are building, that is building out of waste. Then we build in layers so that by the time you want to deconstruct, you'll be able to remove those layers and extract and sort all those components so that we can reuse them in another building. Then the construction and disassembly, that means instead of total deconstruction, we can just design something that we can disassemble in layer, so that by the time we want to disassemble, we want to demolish, we don't just bring bulldozer and demolish. So we have to consider, okay, how do we disassemble this structure in pieces so that we can ship them back to the recycling plant, maybe to recycle or to reuse for another structure. And of course, we have upcycling and downcycling, which is to kind of a closed loop recycling and open loop recycling. So that I hope I'm not so. So to now achieve these circularity implementation in the built environment, there are circularity principles which are called R strategy that we need to consider in built environment for us to achieve, to be able to implement circular economy, which will subsequently result to achieving climate neutrality. And one of it is I call the R strategy, starting from reuse. So reuse involves specifying material building components that are reusable. Instead of using it for once, we can reuse it for multiple times for the secondary loop or multiple loop. Then reduce. So reduce involves reducing the material consumption, the energy consumption, and the waste on the landfill. So by the time we reuse, we'll be able to reduce everything. There will require a kind of systemic, a paradigm shift in our thinking, the way we design, the way we construct, and the way we even operate. So we have to rethink that for us to be able to inject this principle so that we don't just design the normal design, get the normal design and still thinking of achieving circularity. No, our design model have to change, then recover. We have to be kind of specify material that are recoverable, not something that we just use and end up in the landfill. Then recycle those materials that can be recycled, either used for that purpose or can serve as a raw material for another purpose, which led also to repurpose. So thinking of repurposing the material before we even think of design. How can we repurpose this material at the end of life of the building, which led to remanufacturing? So if we can repurpose it, how can we remanufacture it? And of course, refurbish is upgrading of default material, and repair is used to kind of prolong the life of the property. Instead of a defect and you throw it out, you can just repair it to make it in good shape. So these are the principles that are very rare. Of course, there are many principles. Research are still coming up. People are still coming up with different principles that can be implemented. These are the most relevant ones within the built environment that can be implemented in the construction project for us to achieve climate neutrality. And of course, achieving this is not going to come easy. It is going to be full of barriers, definitely. But is jumping the barrier a risky business? I don't think it's no. If you are an expert, I'm going to wrap up here. If you are an expert, if you're a good skater, you can jump the barrier. But if you are not, don't try it at home. So what do I mean? For us to achieve full circularity of the built environment, there are three factors we need to consider. There are promoters, there are facilitators, and there are enablers. So those are the three factors we need to consider. Among the promoters, we have awareness and transparency, such as a typical example of that is kind of this webinar, because people are still not aware about circular economy. Yeah, people are still not aware. With the effort of this kind of webinar, people can become aware and think of, okay, we can do something like that in our project. And most of the current curriculum does not even recognize circularity principle, because I also serve as a TA in my university I teach. We don't have any course related to circular economy, and which is a big barrier, because we are turning out engineers, turning out architects, and they don't know about the practice. So by the time they get to the industry, they will still have that the current practice in place. So there's a kind of need to change the whole curriculum of the built environment for us to be able to, so that we can train our young engineers, young architects, young estimator to on how to implement this principle by the time they get to the industry. And strategic vision, of course, company have to have a vision. It is not easy. If there is no vision, there is no way a company will be able to do that. Then, of course, role and responsibility. There should be what to do, who to do it, at what point to do it, and when to do it. It is very, very necessary. Who is to do what, when to do it, and how is it going to be done is a very factor we need to consider. Then in terms of enabler, we have data and assessment. That's from a kind of from around my research, because I'm researching emerging technology. There will be a kind of systemic change in terms of technology for the adoption, because emerging technologies such as building information modeling, AI, digital twin are being recognized as an enabler for implementing circular economy in various industries. So there will be a kind of training and retraining of people on that. Then innovation, then the industry have to innovate. They have to think outside the box. And capacity building, you have to training and retraining of existing staff, because they don't know about this practice. So you have to train them to be able to kind of inject this principle into their project. And finance, that is a major requirement, because the current practice, the old equipment, the machinery are not produced in conformity to be able to even implement any circularity principle. And even most of these material are not produced in that way. So there'll be a kind of financial burden on the part of the industrial experts on how to, because they have to change their own equipment, change the model of operandis within their environment. And of course, there should be a regulation. Yeah, the current international building code does not recognize using already used material in a new project. And that serves as a very big barrier, because if the building code does not say, okay, you can use material that you recover from that building, there's no such clause in the current international building code. So for you to be able to use the used material, that means the code have to be changed. You have to change that code to state that, okay, you can recover material or recycling material can be used in the new construction. That is when we can say, okay, we can inject that principle. Then appropriate scale. At what scale are we going to implement this practice? It's always a big challenge. Is it at the meso level, micro level, or macro level? Is it at the local government, federal, or state level? Is it at the national level, or at the any other level? So those are the things that also need to be considered, and there will be need for stakeholder engagement. Built environment is a very fragmented industry. A lot of which is comprised of different participants from different disciplines. All these people come together on a project and have different interests. For instance, the architect is concerned with the aesthetic of the building design. The engineer is focused on structural stability. The QS is focused on the cost, while the client is there to offer their value for money. The investor is there to recoup their investment in time. So the investor may not even be concerned about reusable material or recycling the material, because he's only there to make money, maybe to just construct and sell the building within 2 to 3 years. So he may not even concern about what happens at the end of life of that building, of that project. It may not. So there will be a kind of engaging all the stakeholders in the environment, in the built environment, for us to achieve that. Then of course there will be need for policy coherence. Yeah, policy is one of the major discourse in the recent concluded World Circular Economic Forum, right? Because without policy, there is nothing we can really define. We can push for it, but if there is no any policy from the government side that, okay, we are making policy to use recycled material, to building to standard, to build, to design in a standardized manner. There is no way you can do then coordination and be a kind of coordination among these stakeholders. So by considering all these factors, of course, we will be able to implement circularity principle in the built environment, which will subsequently result to climate neutrality. Thank you. That's from the end of my discussion today. So any question, contribution, opinion, or whatever?
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Idris. It's like you poured out a 5 or 10 years educational experience in 1 hour, and we totally understand everything. It was such an insightful section. We do appreciate you. So I will take for questions. My colleague will handle that bit. I know people have a lot of questions to ask rather. So Temidayo, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Idris. It was such a wonderful session. We are so grateful. So if there are any questions from the members, I would like to take them now. So we can just signify by a raise of hand. Anyone with any question? Okay, all right. So Bakemi, please go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. It's not really a question, it's like a comment. You mentioned that there is this code in the building industry or maybe construction industry that they don't use already used how will I call it, materials. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to I want to ask that I'm sure that there is a reason for that, right? Because maybe they are trying to avoid or reduce any form of somebody putting blame on the material or something that I was because I used a used material or something. And also I was going to ask that why can't it be like it's the materials being used in another industry or something else? For example, maybe irons that they use for the casting or something. Can't it be like I know it's possible they use it there. So I'm just trying to comment that instead of us focusing on trying to make them use it, we use it for the building, maybe based on the reason I just stated, can't it be used in another industry, another thing for another thing? Maybe people that are fabricating, what is it called? All these burglary or something like the iron. Then maybe the other things, components of a building. I'm just trying to say, I hope you get what I'm trying to.
I actually get the point. Like, why is it not that we can already use material for different purpose, not even for the new building itself? Yeah, the thing is, building code is as old as construction industry itself. Building code is not something that was just produced maybe 10, 20 years ago. And at the time of the production of that building code, they were not thinking about planet, about climate change, about issue like that. The issue of climate change, circular economy are just emerging. So there is already or existing code that, okay, all the building construction must follow. And that has been in existence for as long as possible. As a matter of fact, that was what I wanted to research on before, how to kind of change the international building code so that we can be able to incorporate used material into the new building. But when I go to read literature about it, I say, oh, it's not something I can finish within 6 years. So and I don't want to stay that long in my study. So I have to switch. It's a very challenging topic because building code has been there for as long as the construction industry is being introduced. And there's once and that code has been there. And this technology, this circular economy is just emerged in recent year. So for us to implement it, there will be need to change it because we did not envisage, they were not envisaging climate change at the time of drafting those code. They think, oh, we can extract resources as long as we want, we can use material as long as we want, and we can dump the waste as long as we want. So nobody even think about, okay, what is the adverse effect of this practice? Nobody. So they draft those code based on the practice as at then. So they didn't even consider, okay, something like climate change or whatever, until the issue of climate change come into being that people start thinking of, okay, one of the reason for climate change is these built environment, the way we consume material, the way we use, the way we dump. So that means if we can reuse material, so that means we can reduce pressure on the natural resources and we eliminate waste. So that is when that comes into being. But economy is also part of what was discussed yesterday at the Circular Economic Forum here, like how to change building code. They're even thinking of, okay, using build as a service instead of you use your own to build. A service company can just build and maintain your building for you without having to bother about. So different things are emerging in every day. So that is the major reason for that. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. It does perfectly.
Yeah. So do we have
Thank you very
any
much, sir.
other
Thank you very much. Yes. Please, sir, okay, I think someone dropped a comment, but before that, please, would like to have your slide so that we can, go through it again and
Okay, sure.
to learn more. Yes,
Sure.
thank you. I think somebody.
Hello? We can't hear you.
Hi.
Okay, sorry. I said we have a comment here. Recent studies have linked climate change to decreased mental health. Individuals affected by the extreme weather conditions tend to have psychological trauma over time due to the loss of lives and properties. So I think that's
Yes.
just an additional comment.
Yes, absolutely correct. Because especially people living along the coastal line, once there is flooding or there is a storm water, and you lose your family or you lost all your property or what you've worked for a number of years, of course, it will result to a kind of mental health issue because it's not something to just forget about, like, okay, the flood just swept away all your property and maybe that's the only property you have. And maybe the owner of that property may be maybe an elderly person which cannot even work like that, really hard like that again to get another property. Yes, it is a very valid point. I agree with that. Yeah. Thank you for chipping in.
All right, sir. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. So I think someone's raising a hand. V. Right. Please go ahead with your question or your contribution.
Yeah. No, it's actually more of a question, to be fair. So like what you were saying earlier about like countries that have like a go green sustainability mark that they have to meet. So essentially, over here in England, we have a going green initiative by the government, and it's more of a so it starts simple, like individual households have to like reuse their plastic bags when they go grocery shopping, and you have things in like big stores that are called like bags for life, where if you need an extra bag, you can just bring that one in, it gets recycled, you get a new one, or you can pay like 10p for a new bag and things. Now, these are little things that at ground level don't really look like a lot, but I suspect that they make quite a difference when you add up the consumption that you have in a country as a whole. Here's my question for you, right?
Yeah.
You know how companies have so like the Go Green initiatives for sustainability in development? What would you say is the most important thing that companies need to look for? Like if you were going to a company and you wanted to have them be part of like, I don't know, like an initiative, and you go, oh, okay, this is, I don't know, like probably like 5 go sets to make your company stand out and go, oh, this is what you are doing to improve the environment. This is what you are doing to be a partner or champion, like sustainability and help like climate change and things, what would you say like a company would need to mark up and readily like make themselves known to like the country or company or whatever that would be interested in them?
Okay, yeah. So if I get your question very well, you mean what can I suggest to a company to make them stand out in terms of implementing sustainability in their practice? Yeah,
Yeah, would make them more favorable to like, especially like, when you have the climate change conversations and company are like, oh, we do this little bit, like Tesco would be like, oh no, we no longer give plastic bags for free and you've got to spend 10p to get a plastic bag. Like little things like that make you think, oh yeah, they are actually helping towards climate change. But what are significant changes that they can actually improvise with and implement?
yeah, I think pay for plastic bag is, I got to know about that when I got to Denmark. Back in the States, we don't pay for plastic bag. When I getting to Denmark, I was like, I have to pay for bag. Like, oh, why do I have to pay? Because Denmark is known for to be at the front line in terms of sustainability. I said, okay. Since then, I have to keep my bags. I don't have to pay 5 kronas just to get a few chicken wings every time I go to the store. So I think paying for bags is one of the good options because it's going to kind of shift our thinking instead of the way we are operating in kind of a wasteful manner, maybe to get a bag and just don't care about where that bag ends. By the time we pay for it, we be careful of, okay, oh, if I don't go with my bag, if I don't reuse this bag, I'll have to pay again and pay again. So that is a kind of a good option. And I think governments to us to can be kind of incentivize the company that are doing that because this fight is not only for a few people, it's for all of us. So if government comes into become a kind of a tax credit for that kind of company that is doing that, maybe to upgrade their business, of course, that would be kind of a plus in terms of promoting sustainability in any sector per se, not even the built environment or in terms of plastic bag recycling. I hope you get my point.
No, I get that, but it's not that it's just one store. Like if you go down the road to a chipping, you get like fish and chips. Even they charge you for a bag. It's like it's a whole thing. Like everyone charges for a bag now. But
Yeah.
that's not the issue. I mean like with proper companies, right? So let's give like a big brand. Let's not say a shopping, a grocery store shopping company. So let's say I don't know, like Pepsi, for example, right? Like, obviously, you're not going to have a Pepsi store, but I'm saying, like, for big companies like that, what would you
Yeah.
think their role should be? And should they be held accountable for, like, their, is it waste management, I would say, or their, I'm trying to find the right way to word it, where it's like, do you not think
Yeah.
that like the bigger
Yeah.
companies should have more of a duty, so to speak? Because obviously the manufacturing of those stuff and whatever does increase. Like you've got, for example, Pepsi, once again, it produces in cans, it produces in bottles. You've got all of those things, and by the time you add it up, you think of the manufacturing process and then the discarding of it when people have a can or whatever. Like here we recycle and stuff, but it's still a huge thing where it's just like how much of it is actually, not it's reducing their impact on those, on climate change, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, it reduces the impact on climate change. Yeah, and what I think company has to do is to kind of take back principle. So instead of maybe for example like Pepsi for instance, they kind of in kind of a take back approach whereby maybe if you get a Pepsi, a bottle of Pepsi, and after drinking it and return the bottle, you can get some, maybe you get some few cents for that. So I think that will also be kind of, because they are responsible one way or the other, because they produce something that is not sustainable to the environment. So it is their responsibility to take care of that. So for them to solve that problem, they can do a kind of take back approach. I think Apple and state of Oregon is doing something like that. Maybe I think there is a Kate a case in court, currently in court, in Oregon. Maybe I think state of Oregon is pushing for a kind of take back approach for Apple product. Like, okay, if I got your phone and I didn't use it any longer, I can return it to you and maybe give me an upgraded version or give me some money for that. So I don't know. I think that case is still in court for now. I think some states are also pushing for that because they are responsible for that fine. They produce those goods for the benefit of the people, but they produce something that is not sustainable and it is harmful to the environment. So they should be held accountable for taking them back. You can just say, okay, you produce Pepsi or any product, then after drinking the liquid, then you throw out the bottle that is end up in the river, in the ocean, affecting the water or the species in the water or even littering the environment. You have to consider, okay, how can we take back those material? You can kind of the company can kind of initiate a kind of take back principle, like, okay, if you return 10 bottle of Pepsi or Coca-Cola, you get like one Coke free. So I think by that, people will be willing to kind of return the bottle, and by that we'll be able to solve the impact of sustainability collectively.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not the companies that are doing it. It's countries that are doing it. I forgot what country in Europe does it, but then you get paid when you recycle. So it's
Yeah.
not the companies who are doing like making those proactive situations. I mean, Samsung now, when you buy a new Samsung phone, it doesn't come with a charger head. They'll tell you like, oh no, because that's our impact to, you know, reduce what we're producing instead. And I get that. But this is my thing. Why isn't there like a governing body that has company to like setting standards where it's just like you should be responsible for the impact of what it's a service you're providing, all good and fine. And I completely get that. But it's a service that is obviously going to negatively impact us in future. Do you get what I mean? Like, if you look at the output of the service you're producing, is it genuinely worth it? And then, I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like I don't like topics like this. Like, when you think about it, it almost makes you feel powerless because it's like, in this present day situation, what could you actually do to kind of like either keep it in control or actually drive it back? And it's just like, no, we are more in a driven technology situation where it's like everybody wants the next new thing. Everybody wants to build something. Everyone is inventing something and everyone is trying for the next thing. And it's just like, well, you're pulling on resources, aren't you? And then you're doing all of that. And it just, do you get what I mean? Like, it just ends up being more things that is taking a toll on the planet and stuff. And it's just like, you're excited about the project and you're excited about the new next thing, but it's just like, you're not really thinking about, 20 years down the line and what my kids are going to have and what that looks like and, the drain on resources and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you have some company like, that would proactively try. But I feel as though like there needs to be a governing body that makes it more of a conscious effort and more of a, I don't know, whether it's fees attached to it and things like that. I think it would be helpful. But that's just my opinion anyway.
Yeah, so I
All
think
right, thank you very much.
you have a valid point, but I think that is where the policy coherence come into play. If because the current policy does not even recognize all the sustainability issue we are talking about. So by the time we have a appropriate policy at the appropriate scale, definitely the company don't have choice than to comply with the policy. And there should be a kind of a regulatory body regulation to monitor that, okay, this company are strictly follow this policy without leaving any part on any stone untouched. So I think that is a majorly on policy issue. If government was able to implement such policy that will mandate all companies to follow sustainability pattern, I think that will really solve the big issue in next. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Idris. Like, it was such an eye-opening session, and thank you for all contributors for every additional comments, every questions. It was so great. It was lovely. So we'll also like to have you some other time, Mr. Idris.
Okay.
We'll also like to have you sometime again.
Thank you.
So I would like to appreciate everyone. So I don't know if my colleague Obakemi has something to say, so we can just wrap up the session because we are currently
Okay, thank you once again. It's sorry, it's really we do not take, trust me, we do not take this long time in this webinar, but today's section is so insightful and so wonderful because I just keep like it's just been a section of learning and a lot of things going in my head. And trust me, I know that one or two of us will have the same experience. But if we keep asking questions and discussing, we will not leave here today. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Idris. It was such an insightful section. It was such an insightful section. And we really love to have you one more time. And also, if you really want to catch up with this webinar, we are on YouTube at Client Initiative. We can share the link with you to be able to follow up and go back to learn one or two things again and again. Also, please follow us on Instagram, Client Initiative. We are also on LinkedIn as Client Initiative. Thank you so much for those joining us for the first time. Thank you, V. Thank you. I just kept seeing, I keep on seeing comments and questions and comments in the chat box. Thank you so much, Give. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Maureen. We are grateful. Thank you, Chooks, and thank you. And see you next month. Same, the third week in third Friday next month. Thank you so much, Mr. Idris, once again. Thank you for coming to have such an insightful section with us, and we do appreciate it. And have a great day, have a great evening, have a great night wherever you joined us from. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for
Bye.
having me. Bye.
Bye.